Donald Trump is going to win this election, and he's going to win the election because the closing message has been the message all along. Kamala, you broke it. Donald Trump is going to fix it. Donald Trump has a positive message for the future, for Americans, on the issues they care about most: the economy, the border, crime, the crises all around the globe. Donald Trump is here to fix those. He's done it before. He's going to do it again. That's why he's going to win on November 5th in 11 days.
People on the Democratic side of the equation say, how can it be possible that it's tied? Why is Harris not running away with this? Well, it's the environment that she's running in. We asked folks your financial situation over the past year. So today compared to a year now, a plurality, nearly half, 49%, say they are worse off today financially than they were a year ago. 35% say they're about the same. Only 16% say they're better off. I'll also just say, we have Joe Biden at a low approval rating at 36% in this poll. We have the wrong track number. 7 out of 10 Americans say we're in the wrong direction. Things aren't going well. It's a rough environment if you're running in the incumbent party.
Sick and tired of the negative, dark, divisive, dangerous vision and behavior of people who support Donald Trump. It is time for us to say no. We are not going backwards. We're going.
In the last few days, the vice president has started to talk about Donald Trump as a fascist, as someone who's spoken approvingly of Hitler. Raise your hand if you've heard about those comments. Okay. What do folks think? Is that something that's persuasive to you? Is that something that you'll factor into your vote? Linda?
To me, it's horrible that she's saying that about him. If he was saying that about her, everybody would be up in arms. I just don't think that's right.
What other folks think about what the vice president's saying, based on accounts of people who've worked with the President Trump? What do folks think about her making those charges and those characterizations?
She obviously thinks it's going to help her. I don't think it does at all. I don't know why, if it was Kelly who heard the president say that. I'm not saying he did or he didn't. I don't think he'd lie. I think you said that, Mark, on an episode. But I think that he had a responsibility to resign the day that was said, if that's true. I don't think that's the case.
I can't. I think part of the reason why I'm being pushed towards Trump so strongly is that I find that the Democrats and the left just keep going straight to Hitler all of the time with everything. Like it, and if it's not the left pushing Hitler, it's the right pushing Stalin. So it's like we're fighting World War II every single day for every single election. So it's so exhausting. I think it just detracts from, it pushes me away from their position, and it's so hyperbolic that it makes it impossible to have good discussions, and I think it ruins the discourse.
Does anybody think it's valuable or something you want to hear from the vice president? Anybody? Raise your hand if you think this is something that's important for her to be talking about. Anybody? Okay.
All right. I went back through the time machine to see where were the past two races at this point in the campaign. Look, Harris in the average poll right now is up by 1. Well within the margin of error. You go back 4 years ago, Joe Biden was well ahead of Donald Trump in the national popular vote polls. He was up by 9. Even Hillary Clinton was up by 6 points. So now Donald Trump's in a position he really hasn't been before at this point in the campaign, where he could truly compete, and we can truly say that the popular vote at this point is way too close to call. Of course, this is only going back 8 years. I wanted to jump even further back in my time machine to get an understanding. Hey, I haven't heard about a Republican potentially winning the popular vote in a while. And it turns out a Republican winning the popular vote, it hasn't happened since 2004 in George W. Bush defeating John Kerry. And that's only the one time that it has happened. In fact, you have to go all the way back to 1988 to find another one, when it was George W. Bush's father, George H.W. Bush, winning the popular vote over Michael Dukakis. So the fact that the polls right now are so close, John, the fact that Donald Trump has a legitimate shot of winning the popular vote is something I think a lot of folks, including in my line of work, really didn't think could possibly happen when Donald Trump was running last time around. He could make history, not just for Donald Trump, for a Republican candidate as well.
Now, there are some reasons for this, and I think Democrats' heads are all exploding out there watching this right now. there are some reasons for this, which you're going to explain, but also begin to raise the possibility that we could see the reverse. We could see the reverse of things we've seen, where a Republican wins the popular vote, but there's a chance for the Democrat to win the Electoral College.
Yeah, part of my job is to warn our viewers on either side of the aisle of an event that may occur that they don't necessarily like. And Donald Trump winning the popular vote could absolutely happen. You might as well wrap your minds around it now, folks, if you don't like Donald Trump.
Whoa. What's going on, beautiful people, my brothers and sisters around the world? I hope everybody is blessed, well, healthy, and that nothing but the best is going on in all you beautiful people's life, man. Y'all see what's going on. All I can do is show it to you, keep you updated. But I want to tell you, we don't care about all these polls. We're not going to rely on the polls. We're not going to rely on this. We're not going to get complacent. We need to go out and vote. It has to be too big to rig. We're not against the candidate. We are against a corrupt machine. It has to be too big to rig. We must show up, man. We see this, we see that. Oh, he's won. And we don't show up. We got to show up. We got to go out and vote, you guys. I don't care about none of these polls, but we do have to show you what's going on. We got another map. And you seen at the beginning of the video, it's man. Right now, it could be a possibility. Trump is literally going, like I told y'all, if this is done right, a fair free election, I believe history is going to be made on this map, y'all. And it might not even end up like you know what we're talking about. But we've been seeing 312, 315, 317. You know, we've been seeing Trump, you know, easily go past 312. But look, history can be done on this map, you guys. I believe, and it's simply because what did you expect with that lady? She don't even know her own policy. She can't complete a sentence. Word salad. Word spaghetti. It's not if she's a woman or if she's black. And that's what they're running off of. Identity politics. Are you qualified? And every time she goes out there and speak or have an event, a town hall or anything, she makes people want to go out and vote for Donald Trump. For Trump. I'm just saying. Every time she opens up her mouth, you go watch an interview, and it's the same as the last interview. She's not answering questions. She's ducking and dodging, and she's hiding. She's repeating the same thing into this cringe word salad of the same things we've heard over and over and over again. And some people now that, you know, lifelong Democrats, liberals, people, they're like, man, can I really go out and vote for this? And they see where we're at now in this critical time. Maybe President Trump, we might need to just go with President Trump these next 4 years. Because we are in big trouble, man. Prayers for America. And prayers for Trump, man. That he can make it, man. Because it looks like inside jobs. They don't want him here. You know. They don't want the man alive. They're shaking out their shoes right now that he is not dead or in prison. So, man, we prayers for Trump, man, his family, his team, his campaign, in these dark times that we're living in, y'all. But it's time for a change, man. And I honestly believe them Republicans get in there. It might not be a Democrat in there for quite a long time. I'll be honest with y'all, I think they're gonna do such a great job. Think that they're gonna flip this whole thing around, man. That's just my opinion and what I feel like is gonna happen. But we are in some big trouble, man. Now there's a lot of people saying, you know, no matter who wins, you know, we are in, you know, nothing's gonna change, and we are gonna be in even more trouble no matter who wins. So, man, it's crazy right now, y'all. But we got to get them out. This lady does not need a promotion. You know, she's already admitted that she's Joe Biden 2.0. And now after seeing interviews, town halls, you know, she's not. They didn't got so desperate. Went back to calling him Hitler, dictator. They're gonna keep talking about January J6 because they know that they're losing. They're desperate now, and this has been one of the worst campaigns we've seen from a Democrat. I'm just being honest. And I believe this is going to be one of the worst performing Democrats in our lifetime. I'm just saying. That's what I feel after everything we've seen this year, man. You know, he blew the motor and transmission. They said, "Sir, you are defeated. Trump is walking back in here. We got to get you out of here." You know. So they said she won they had a primary, 0 votes. 0 votes. Most unpopular. But we allowed the media, the corrupt media, to build a candidate. So here we are. How they played in front of our faces. And she comes out time and time after again, showing that she isn't meant for the job. That she doesn't know what she's doing. She can't tell you the policy. She can't tell you her plan. So, hey, let's go and get into it, y'all. But again, I don't care about these polls. We're going to see the polls, this map, but we cannot rely on this, y'all. All we can do is show it to you, and you might feel happy and believe and all this, but please go out and vote. I know a lot of y'all have already voted, did your early voting, but make sure you go out and vote, y'all. Let's check it out.
Easy on track to win the Electoral College, but taking into consideration previous polling error, he'll also win the popular vote. Harris leads on average by just 0.6%, meanwhile Joe Biden in 2020 was up by 7.2. You can clearly see just how much better of a position Democrats were in 4 years ago than they are today. And in this video, we'll be comparing the 2024 electoral map to the 2020 map based on polls, so you guys can see just how much Trump's popularity has gone up over the last 4 years. And so I've already filled in all of the solid states for both candidates. We're only going to focus on the Battleground races. This is the extended Battlegrounds map. So you do have the traditional 7 swing states, but also races in states like New Mexico, Iowa, and Florida that are going to be less competitive, but still very important. And you might notice that there is a slight difference in the electoral vote count between the 2020 map and the 2024 map, and that is simply because of the redistribution of electoral votes after the 2020 census. So there is going to be a slight difference, and generally it has favored Republicans. So we're going to start off in the state of Nevada, where today Donald Trump leads by 0.7%. Kamala Harris was ahead in the state for most of the campaign after she entered the race, but just a few weeks ago, Donald Trump took the lead and is now officially the favorite to win the Silver State, a state Republicans haven't won since 2004. So it's going to be tilt Republican on our map. Meanwhile, Joe Biden was leading by 5.3% in 2020. He was on track to crush Donald Trump in the last election. Ultimately, he only won the state by 2.4, but still, the polling had him up by a whopping 5 points. We have another very important race in Arizona as well. Today, Trump leads by 1.6%. Out of the 7 most recent polls that have come out, the former president leads in 5 of them. Not a single one has Harris in the lead. Now, Trump has been ahead basically the entirety of the time when he ran against both Harris and Biden. There was only a 2-day period where Harris was actually ahead. There's no doubt Trump is going to win Arizona back, a state he actually lost in the 2020 election. 4 years ago, Joe Biden was leading the polls by nearly 3 points. He eventually carried the state by 0.3. It was an impressive flip on Biden's part, but Kamala Harris is not going to be able to repeat the incumbent president's success here from 4 years ago. And so today, Arizona is lean Republican, while last time it was lean Democratic. Moving on to Colorado and New Mexico, today Harris leads by 11 in Colorado, but you do have to keep in mind that this is a Democratic-funded poll, which means that it definitely did oversample Harris supporters, while in Colorado 4 years ago, Joe Biden led by nearly 13. So we see another big drop-off for the vice president, even though both states are going to be likely blue, with Biden's margin being towards that upper range and Harris towards the lower. Down in New Mexico, the vice president barely leads by a likely margin. She's ahead by just 7.7, while Joe Biden led by 12 going into the election. So once again, both states are likely, but Biden's margin was still noticeably stronger. Down in Texas, we have one of the best examples of polling just constantly missing the mark and underestimating Trump. 4 years ago, the former president was supposed to win the Lone Star State by just 1.1%. Ultimately, he carried it by 5 times that margin. Today, he's ahead by 6 points, larger than his margin of victory from 4 years ago, and considering previous errors, Texas is probably going to vote for Trump by at least a double-digit margin. So on the 2020 map, the state is going to be tilted red, while today it has become lean, nearly a likely state for the former president. Moving up to the Midwest, this is where you really see a big shift from where we were 4 years ago, and it really starts to get embarrassing for Kamala Harris. We're going to start off in Minnesota, the home state of Governor Tim Walz. Joe Biden led in Minnesota by nearly a double-digit margin. He did perform well in the state. He carried it by over 7 points, following Hillary Clinton's 1% victory from 2016. Today, Kamala Harris is on track for a victory similar to that of Clinton's from 8 years ago. Today's polling shows Harris up by just 4.7%. The most recent Rasmussen poll has her leading by just 3. And this is with Kamala Harris running with Tim Walz as her running mate. If she can't even outperform Joe Biden in the home state of her vice presidential nominee, she has no chance of actually winning the election. And so 4 years ago, Minnesota was likely blue. Today, it has fallen into the lean column. Before we continue, nearly 3/4 of you guys are not subscribing. Margin for Donald Trump. Similar to Texas, though, Trump carried the state ultimately by 7 times that margin, winning the state by 8.2%. Today, Trump leads by 4. Obviously, he's going to win by a much larger margin, probably 10 percentage points or more, but based solely on the data, Iowa is going to be lean red on our 2024 map and tilt red on our 2020 map. We also do have data from the 2nd District of Nebraska. This is one of the few places where Harris is performing better than Biden. She leads by 10%. Meanwhile, 4 years ago, Biden led by 3.8. And one of the reasons for this is because of redistricting. The 2nd District is much more liberal than it was 4 years ago. That really is the only reason why Harris is performing better today than the incumbent president was 4 years ago. Coming up to Wisconsin now, it doesn't get any worse than this for Kamala Harris. Today's polls show basically a tie between Trump and the vice president. Trump leads by 0.1%, while 6 out of the last 8 polls here are projecting a complete tie. And if you look at how the graph has changed over the last few months, it really has been very close. Harris led by 2 points at one point. She, of course, has since lost her lead, but still, Wisconsin remains close if you just look at the hard numbers. 4 years ago, though, Joe Biden led by a whopping 8 points, and this is the issue here for Kamala Harris, because Joe Biden did not win Wisconsin by anywhere near an 8-point margin. He actually only won Wisconsin by 0.63. Not even 1% separated him and the former president. And so if you take 2020 polling into context and now look at 2024, you'll really start to understand why Trump is in such a good position to win this election. 4 years ago, Wisconsin was not tilt blue, not lean blue, but actually likely blue. Meanwhile, today, the state is tilt red. Moving on to Michigan, you might be asking, how could things possibly get any worse for Kamala Harris? But somehow, they just do. If you look at polling there today, Trump leads by 0.2%. The numbers projecting a close race, once again, just like in Wisconsin. However, the problem is that Michigan is the most liberal of all the swing states. If Trump even wins Michigan by 0.1%, he is definitely going to win the election and basically all the other swing states. Michigan was the first state where Trump took the lead in the polling average after she entered the matchup against Donald Trump. But now that we're in the final stretch of this race, she is losing her lead. 4 years ago, Joe Biden was supposed to win the Wolverine state by just under 8 points. It was supposed to be a landslide victory. Ultimately, though, he won it by just 2.8. Yes, it's better than his performance in Wisconsin, but just barely. So on our 2020 map, Michigan was likely blue, just like its western neighbor, while today, just like Wisconsin, it is also flipped in favor of Donald Trump. Ohio also looked really bad for Trump last time around. He was only supposed to win the Buckeye State by 0.8%. In fact, Biden led through most of the election cycle in Ohio. Ultimately, though, Trump won Ohio also by an 8-point margin, very similar to what we saw in Iowa. Today, though, Trump leads by 7 points. He's going to win Ohio by a double-digit margin. There's no doubt about it. The state has gone from being tilt red 4 years ago to today, where it is likely in favor of Trump. And then now to finish off the Midwest in Pennsylvania, Trump's margin today is 0.5%. We see a good mix of polls, although Trump does lead in most of them. Pennsylvania has been very close over the last 2 months. Polling suggests it really could go either way. Now, the polling error was not as bad in the Keystone State as in its two western neighbors. Biden was supposed to win by 4.7. He won by 1.2. Still, the polls definitely overestimated Democrats by quite a bit, but not as bad as in Wisconsin and Michigan. So Kamala Harris could feel a little bit better about Pennsylvania, but considering just how poorly she's doing in Wisconsin and Michigan, she has nothing to be happy about right now. So 4 years ago, Pennsylvania was lean blue. The error wasn't as egregious as in many of these other upper Midwestern states, but today, just like basically all its neighbors, it has flipped in favor of Donald Trump, and it is tilt red. We're going to move on up to the Northeast now. We have two competitive New England states, New Hampshire and Maine. Starting off in the Granite State, today Harris leads by 7.8%. 4 years ago, Biden led by 11. So both these states are going to be likely blue on the map, New Hampshire from today and New Hampshire from 4 years ago. But once again, just like we've seen all across the map, Kamala Harris' performance simply isn't up to par to what we saw from Biden last time around. In Maine, today Harris leads by around 11 points, but the polling here has been abysmal. These University of New Hampshire polls are terrible. There's no way Kamala Harris is going to win by even close to a 17-point margin. 4 years ago, polling had Joe Biden ahead by 13. He ultimately won the state by 9. So in both their maps, Maine is going to be likely blue, but you do have to take this data with a huge grain of salt. While in the 2nd district, today Trump leads by 1%. 4 years ago, Biden actually led, so we have another flip going from lean Biden now to lean Trump. And now to finish off the map down south, we're going to begin up in Virginia, where we see another huge drop-off for the vice president. Today, Harris leads by just 6.4% in a state that Biden carried by 10 in the last election. In fact, he led in the polling by nearly 12 percentage points. If the polls overestimate Democrats here again, Virginia really could go in favor of Trump. That is still generally unlikely, but is definitely within the realm of reasonable possibility. Harris's average has been propelled up by two new outlier polls, one of them conducted by Emerson College, which is, of course, one of the most liberal pollsters in the country. So in the Commonwealth of Virginia, we've seen a shift downward for Democrats from likely Biden, now just to lean Harris. Down in North Carolina, we have another complete flip from blue to red. In 2020, Joe Biden was supposed to win the Tar Heel state by just under 2 points. Ultimately, he lost it by 1.3. In fact, Joe Biden was ahead throughout the entirety of the election cycle, and somehow he butchered it. Today, Trump is actually in the lead. He leads by 0.5. The race has definitely been made more competitive by Mark Robinson, the Republican candidate for governor, who is just fighting scandal after scandal. He's going to lose his race, but he's not going to impact the election at the top of the ticket too much. Trump is still going to be able to walk away from North Carolina with a victory. So it's gone from lean blue in 2020 now to tilt red in 2024. We have yet another complete reversal in Georgia. Now, to give pollsters credit, polling in Georgia has actually been relatively accurate, especially compared to what we've seen in all the other swing states. 2020 polling suggested a 1.2% margin of victory for Joe Biden. He ultimately carried the state by 0.2. It was one of the closest states in the entire country. country, and the polls really weren't too far off. Now today, though, the problem for Harris is that not only is she not leading, but she's trailing by double the margin that Biden led by 4 years ago. This is not a state that Trump is going to lose. Trump, who is underestimated in every single poll, he is not going to lose when all 9 of the most recent polls from Georgia show him ahead. The polling average has favored Trump over the last 2 months. He is going to flip Georgia back, a state he won by 5 points in 2016. So the race has gone from being lean blue in favor of Biden now to being lean red in favor of Trump. And finally, in the Sunshine State of Florida, we have another huge shift, another complete reversal. In 2020, Joe Biden was supposed to win Florida by 2.5 points. He led throughout the entirety of the election cycle. He ultimately lost the state by an even larger margin than he was leading by. Trump won Florida by 3.4. Today, the former president leads by 8.4. He's probably going to win Florida by 10 points or more. It's going to be a huge victory in favor of Donald Trump. So just like in many of its southern neighbors, Florida has gone from blue to red. It was lean Democratic in 2020. Today, it has actually become not tilt, not lean, but likely red. And so this is what we get when we compare the 2024 polling map to the 2020 polling map. 4 years ago, Joe Biden was on track to win in an electoral college landslide with 351 electoral votes. He ultimately only won 306, so this really shows you just how much polling has overestimated Democrats in the past. But today, for the very first time ever, Donald Trump is actually on track to win an election. He's at 312, Harris at just 226. And you can feel the difference. In both 2016 and 2020, Trump was the clear underdog. I mean, when he won in 2016, he couldn't even believe it himself. The Clinton campaign was so confident that they were going to come out with a victory. But today, Donald Trump is in the driver's seat. It is his race to lose. Kamala Harris is far behind, and with just 10 days to go until the election, it really doesn't seem like she has enough time to catch up. They